Hey everybody. Welcome to Parenting with a Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janel. We are back here weekly. I'm laughing, y'all, because if y'all can see these balloons here, I am being overtaken by balloons. I am finishing my last exam tomorrow, and I'll be graduating as a registered nurse. So my guest tonight, Rhonda Santos, decides to bring all these balloons and celebrate tonight. So that's why I'm laughing, because
it's not enough in one pot.
I'm laughing because it's hilarious. But anyway, we want to bring back the responsibility, nobility, and beauty back into parenting. And there's a lot going on in parenting right now. There's a lot of things I've seen. As you know, a couple weeks ago I had Pam on the show, and we were talking about so many different things as it relates to parenting. Parents not really having a village, or maybe burning their village. The situation with a young lady on her cruise and left two of her children, 6 and 8 years old, home watching themselves. She was actually parenting through a camera while she was at sea. That shit. I think Tubi's gonna have a movie.
Right.
Tubi's always having a movie. I think it's gonna be Parenting at Sea or something like that. Anyway, so we had that conversation. Tonight, though, we're going to continue the conversation. We have Rhonda Santos back again. This is not the first time she's been on the show. She's back again. And we're going to continue the conversation. We got kind of deep last time.
We didn't have enough time.
We didn't have enough time. But there are so many different things we want to talk about and hit tonight, because I think a lot of times, as I said before, that if we don't heal our wounds, we will continue to bleed over our children. So a lot of things that we're going to be talking to tonight is just talking about how we can heal from a lot of situations that has happened to us, and how we don't bleed on our children, so then our children don't begin to bleed on other people. The cycle goes on. So welcome back. Here we go. She's
this is my favorite time of the year because my students are graduating, and it's so exciting. Someone said to me, one of the students said to me a couple weeks ago, Ms. Rhonda, I think you're more hyped than we are sometimes. And I said, you guys don't understand. Like, the educators understand that when you, as an instructor, as an educator, when you see your student realize that light bulb moment and they realize their own greatness, like, there's just nothing like it. And to just see them like stepping into their purpose is so exciting. So yeah, thanks for having me back. We touched on what we were doing.
Well, let's remind the people who you are.
Yes, my name is Rhonda Santos. I am a registered nurse. I have a master's in nursing with a specialization in healthcare informatics. I'm currently a nurse educator. I have over 200 students right now, literally.
Whoa.
And I'm loving every minute of it, though. As far as my informatics background, that's clinical nurse informaticist is basically just a fancy way of saying that we are nurses who assist research and development teams, IT teams, with developing electronic health records. So I do that remotely, but I can't sit in front of the computer for 8 hours, 6 hours. So, educating
future generation nurses is my passion.
And so,
yes, welcome back.
I'm excited to be back. Yep.
All right, so we're going to get into it, because we be running out of time.
Yeah, because we run out of time. Right. I looked at, when I watched our session last time, there were a couple things that I think, a couple places you were trying to go. Mm-hmm. But I think I had lost you. And what we were talking about was narcissistic abuse.
Right.
And we were talking about how those patterns in childhood, basically how they affect us and how we carry that into adulthood. Right. Basically, if we're not trying to heal, if we don't know that there's an issue and we're trying to heal. And one of the things you mentioned that was really key, you said, oftentimes when that happens, we going into adulthood, when we get into these dysfunctional relationships, what ends up happening is we think that when someone is obsessive about us.
Like these balloons?
Yes.
Okay.
Like these balloons. You can't go anywhere.
I'm just like,
right? I want to know your every move.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And that's where you were going with that.
Yeah.
And then, but where I was trying to expand on that is, you said basically we think that is a good thing.
Right.
Right. Because we want the nurturing, what we were missing, we're looking for in our relationship.
Right.
So we think that it's okay. And that it means, oh, they love us.
Right.
But really and truly, that's an individual that has some serious insecurities and a major inferiority complex. And what can happen is those are people that will hurt you. Right. You know, your stalkers. But because in childhood, we were also surrounded by so much dysfunction and so much toxicity, that became intimacy to us. And so we look for that in relationships.
Right.
We look for that drama and we don't even realize it because a lot of times it is happening below the veil of consciousness, but we're drawn, you know, to drama.
Right. If it ain't nothing popping, what's going on? You start thinking like, what's wrong with you? Because ain't nothing popping.
Exactly. This relationship is too peaceful.
Yeah.
You know, why, you know, because so that's how we get pulled in. But we just had started touching on codependency, which is definitely a byproduct of being a victim of narcissistic abuse, essentially. Yeah. Because that codependent person is that, and the first time I ever heard about codependency, I was in LPN school, and we had great professors, and my professor said to the class during a psych lecture, and she said, I want to discuss codependency with you guys. She said, because as nurses, as nursing students, you're drawn oftentimes, to these helping professions. If there's, some codependent tendencies or traits under the surface. And she spoke with us at great length about that and explained it. And I remember thinking to myself, that sounds like me.
Oh,
right.
And
so me, the inquiring mind that I've always been, like, I want to know, I want to find out more. I lived in the self-help section in the bookstore. Like, I knew I had this toxic family dynamic. Right. I didn't exactly know what it was called, but I knew that there was a problem. But I remember being in that section in the bookstore and asking, where can I find this book? Because the book that was recommended to me by my professor was Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. One of the best books on codependency. And so it was in the addiction section of the bookstore. And I said, I'm not an addict.
Right.
Why is this, but it's an addiction.
Yeah.
It is. Because it is a excessive psychological need to be a people pleaser, basically.
Right.
To help others, to save others, to control others, really is what's happening below the veil of consciousness. You want to control this person. You feel like you can make them better. You can fix them. And that comes from that childhood neglect, being told you're bad, being told you're no good, you're nothing, you're not going to be anything, you're not going to amount to anything. Right. That narrative. So all your life, all your relationships, you become this person who's always giving too much of yourself and never really getting anything back. And I was, I would say for sure, for many, many years, definitely my family ran my pockets. Took advantage of my codependency.
That's interesting.
Because I just showed up for everybody, financially, physically, emotionally. I had no boundaries.
But that's interesting, like the way that you're breaking it down, what you're saying, because when I think about parenting, right, when I think about individuals who had such a lot growing up, not just like, I'm not talking about food, clothes, and shelter, all those things, but emotional, right? And then you become a parent, you become like this micromanager parent, like this parent who like really, and I've experienced that myself, where I felt like I needed to be everything to my kids. Like, you become a superhero pretty much.
Yes.
And you begin to micromanage everything in their life instead of allow them to grow for their own independence and things like that. But you feel like you just have to be the person to be all to your children. And that's based on, for me, it was based on the fact that I didn't have the parents that I always wanted, basically. I didn't grow up with for me at the time, didn't realize the love and the nurturing, the show up at the school, to do all these things that what parent does.
So we overcompensate, essentially.
Yeah, yes. And that's what happens.
Yes,
when we get into parenting, because you ever hear, I don't know if you experienced it before, but I want to give my kids everything that my parents didn't give to me.
Yes,
and that's not good.
That's not good.
Or I'm not going to be anything like my parents, and you turn to be the total opposite of your parents, but you're still jacked up because like it wasn't like your parents was the worst thing since sliced bread, but it's just the things that was happening you didn't like, so then you take on these other behaviors, and you become addicted to people pleasing.
Yeah, because you need to feel validated. You need to feel, and one of the things that we didn't really have a whole lot of time to touch on, but I really just kind of want to put out there, if you, again, a disclaimer, I am not a minister, I am not a content creator, I am not a psychologist, I am not a psychiatrist. And for sure, if anything, any of the mental health disorders we're discussing today, if it hits home, by all means, see a professional. Because I am not qualified to diagnose, we don't diagnose. No. But again, like speaking from experience, what ends up happening is you'll recognize, even if you don't know that it's a toxic family of origin, right? There's a problem. Something's wrong.
Right. Yeah,
right.
Something clicking.
It is so important that you get out of that circle. You get out, you break away, and you expand your horizons, and you find a tribe, basically, right. Because they will mirror back to you who you really are. Because when you're in this toxic family dynamic, right. You're growing up around these people that have a benchmark for you, first of all, and we talked about that a little bit. That benchmark, you hear people say, if you have a business and you start a business, it's better to do business with people you don't know than it is to do business with family.
Right.
Right? And really what I have found is that's because in your toxic family of origin, and it specifically is a toxic family of origin, because every family is not that way. Okay, right. So I'm not generalizing. But in that toxic family of origin, they have a benchmark for you. Okay? And so it's like, you are here and you're not supposed to exceed beyond that.
Right, yeah.
This is your role in the family. And usually, if you're the codependent person, you're usually the scapegoat. So you're everything that happens.
These people are getting on my nerves.
Everything that happens is your fault, basically. And right. You feel that way as a codependent person. I mean, literally, you would believe that you're responsible for world hunger. Right. Everybody that has a problem, it's your fault, and you have to.
No, I'm good. They all right.
Everybody that has a problem, it's your responsibility to fix it.
Like you become a superhero.
You become a superhero because subconsciously you think, and again, you may not be thinking it in your conscious mind, but everything you're doing is coming from a place of, well, maybe if I fix this problem, or if I help this person with their rent or their car payment or their whatever they need for their kids, whatever it is, right. That essentially they will love me back.
Right. That part.
They will love me back and they will see my value.
That part.
That right part, okay?
Yeah.
And that just reinforces that whole cycle. And narcissists are attracted to people with codependent. They're like magnets. And it's because we're more likely to stroke their ego. Because again, the people pleasing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, now it's making sense.
Now we're fixers. So it's like, they're attracted to us. And we can easily be drawn in by that because we think that, they want to listen to us. This is someone who thinks that, so it becomes this very toxic dynamic that can easily extend well into adulthood. And again, like we talked about before, just keep you from your purpose. Because as long as you have this low sense of self-worth,
right,
and you're not able to love on yourself the way you need to love on yourself, and feel like you're important enough to set boundaries, to have boundaries. No is a complete sentence.
Right. I think that's so hard when it comes that's why it's so important for us to heal, because we literally just start spilling all that over on our kids and our family members, our nieces, like anybody who comes in contact with. It's almost like an affection, right? Like it's literally like, I just think about, we just had the pandemic, right? And once if you're around somebody with COVID, now they got it and it just spreads like that.
It does,
and
it does.
If we don't take a hold of it, of our thought patterns and understanding really who we are, we literally just going around affecting everybody else, because the fact that we weren't able to heal from whatever disease process or whatever it is psychologically that was upon us, and now we literally we're out just giving it out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If I didn't have an instructor that actually went there and talked about it, and she came from a place of, I want to really, take time to talk about codependency, because oftentimes, people that are attracted to nursing professions, helping professions, oftentimes have codependent tendencies, codependent traits. You can very easily end up with the alcoholic partner or the partner that's an addict, and now you're going to fix their addiction becomes your problem.
That is so important you said that, because a lot of times, like, we try to figure out how do we end up in these same type of relationships over and over again, and then you a lot of times you begin to question stuff
because if you don't have somebody that you need to fix. I can look back on my relationships, and anybody that didn't, like, the men in my life that were good for me, I didn't want.
Wow.
Because there was no drama.
Yeah.
There was no drama. I was used to all the drama and the things that I saw growing up, so that was intimacy to me. Right. So if I wasn't in a relationship that had drama, I didn't feel loved.
Wow.
I didn't feel like it was, that was what I was attracted to. And so I was constantly, ending up in relationships with people with narcissistic personality disorder, because those are the people that were attracted to me. They saw that I was an empath, that I was a people pleaser. It's like we have this neon sign, flashing over our head. So it was the neediness. And what was always odd to me, though, is I was always good alone, though. That's always been, I was on my own basically at like 16. So I was always good on my own. Like, I always enjoyed my own space. It wasn't like I necessarily needed someone in my space all the time. But I definitely, if I was in love with someone, or love someone, I definitely felt like I needed to be fully present for them. And I would sacrifice so many parts of myself for that person. Right. And then we get mad when they don't reciprocate.
Yeah, that part right there. That's what I want to talk about. Because I think about earlier in my parenting, like, I'm so serious. Like, I think about, me parenting my older daughter is definitely different than I'm parenting the three younger ones now. I mean, she's about to be 25 at the end of the month. But I think about even our relationship and me parenting the best way I know how early on, and not recognizing these other issues that I had. I just felt like I was so on her about everything. Like, everything had to be perfect. And I remember her telling Mom, when she got older, she was like, I feel like you just created a porcelain lifestyle. And I didn't know what that meant at first. I was like, a porcelain lifestyle. But now I think about it constantly, and I think about how I was parenting her. I was parenting her out of fear, anger, and hurt, right? And I was so afraid that if I didn't do if I wasn't on her the way I was, or if I didn't communicate with her the way I did, that she wasn't going to love me.
I did the same thing, with my son, absolutely.
And I think, that's one of the reasons why our relationship, what it is now, our relationship still needs some healing. Even though I think about, I was a mom that made sure everything was straight. I took care of her. But at the same time, there's some of my pain that's on her, and I do recognize that because of just the lack of, right? Yeah. And but I think about often, and I parent the three younger ones totally different, but some of those tendencies still come up. Yeah. And I have to check myself, because when they don't, like I said, sometimes I get upset. And when I get upset, it's like, because if I'm doing all this for you, right? Yeah. If I'm taking care of you emotionally, physically, safety, everything, I'm doing everything, and the least that I ask you to do is to do your chore. And then when you don't do your chore, to me, that's a sign of disrespect. That's how I take it, right? And then I go off. Like, I'll say it for a couple times, and then all of a sudden, 2 or 3 weeks later, I'm livid. So I'm in the kitchen having an adult temper tantrum. Like, I'm throwing pots and pans around. I ain't swinging them at the kids, but I'm throwing them around the kitchen. I mean, they better run. It's like, nah, I ain't swinging at them. But I now think about it, it's like, it's because I felt like, almost like, and it's crazy in parents, it's like, you owe me because I've done this, that, and the other. Right. And that's not really how we should be parenting. Right. Like, our kids are not, we don't own our kids, first of all. We don't own them. Now, we're responsible to raise them. But the older in parenting, I'm 25 years deep in parenting now, and the more I look at it and the relationships with difference between all four of my children, and I'm recognizing that I have this thing where because I do this, I expect you to do something else. And when it doesn't happen,
yes,
I'm upset.
Then you're upset.
I feel like you're disrespectful.
And then you have these people that are like, well, hey. Like,
and not realizing they're children, though.
Right.
And it ain't that deep.
And it's not that
But
deep.
because of the scars that I have.
Right.
And felt like, I've done something for people so much. And when they don't do it in return, I definitely feel disrespected. But a lot of times, adults is one thing. But when you start treating your children like that, why would you? Like, my daughter, the one that's just turned 18.
And it is grounded in the need to control.
It's a control
Very much
issue.
so. It is
and I
grounded in the need
didn't
to
know
control.
that. Like, she said to me, it was like a control thing back and forth. She was like, well, why do you view that as disrespectful? Because it is. Like, and I couldn't really explain to her why I felt that was disrespectful that you didn't do your chore. And so I just was like, because you didn't do this and you didn't do this and I did this and I did that. And it really woke me up like, yo, you got some serious issues. And I learned over time, like, I'm still healing from that to make sure that even now that they're 16 and 18, that I'm still parenting in a way where I don't want them to have these habits growing up. I don't want them to think. When my daughter said to me, the one that's 18, and I had asked her something about her, like, I'm well put together. I like to go out. I like to, like, I'm well put together.
But you don't have no bling shoes.
I know, no bling shoes today.
Okay.
So my daughter had got dressed, and she was going somewhere with me, and I got really upset. Like, why you look like this? Like, why are you dressed with a wrinkled shirt and you didn't iron your clothes? And she was like, well, what's the big deal? I'm like, I didn't raise you like that. I didn't, like, that's not, she was like, I said, I showed you how to do better. She said, you didn't show me. I'm like, what? She said, you did everything for me. You literally ironed my clothes, picked my clothes out, picked everything out all the way up until now. Mm-hmm. And now I have to do it on my own. And I don't know how to do it, or I don't feel the need to do it. And I said, that's control. Like, I literally was controlling all these years.
And then you get into, like, overcompensating in your relationships, when you have those codependent traits. And I did that a lot with, other family members, mm-hmm. children, where I think because I was, a teen mom, so I wasn't, let's face it, I wasn't there in the way that I would have liked to really be there for my son, because I was young and I was in survival mode.
Right. Yeah.
Trying to make it. But the thing is, I found that I was overcompensating in other areas of my life, like for other people. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until my son and I actually had a conversation, because our relationship was, very strained about it, because that bothered him. Yeah. And I didn't know that at that time, because the way I viewed it was his needs were met.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
His needs were met. But it was someone else that had children and their needs weren't really met. And so I was pouring into them because I saw them as being more needy. When really the reality is, a lot of that time and effort should have been for my son. Mm-hmm.
And they recognize that, and we don't.
And they recognize that. And let me tell you something. They repress it. It's there. Mm-hmm. And like, I was surprised, because I thought, because we always had, my son and I always had been able to really communicate, effectively. And I just never imagined that those were things that he was dealing with and how he was feeling. So you just don't know. Children are so impressionable. And remember when we talked before about abuse, how children, their ego can't process that if an adult abuses them, mm-hmm. or is mean to them, or, just really neglects them, their ego can't process that there's something wrong with that adult.
Right.
No. They think no matter what you tell them, mm-hmm. children think that they have the problem.
Right.
That something is wrong with them. Mm-hmm. You can't, people have, sent their kids to therapy and everything. But it takes a long time for them to realize that if an adult mistreated them, that it wasn't their fault. Right. So you take that and you combine that with people telling you, nothing but negativity about yourself, mm-hmm. For so many years, like, it just makes you feel very unworthy, mm-hmm.
Right.
You feel unloved. Yeah. And you don't believe that you're a good person. And while a lot of times you don't admit it until you can really get to the core, it's affecting you and it's driving you. Those thoughts in your subconscious mind are driving you, and it's a part of how you show up in the world and how you show up for other people, and especially in your relationships.
Right. Because you think you're not enough.
You think you're not enough.
Yeah.
You do. You really do believe that. I was always told, I remember like I would be around people that I hadn't seen in years, right? And they would just be like, you were so bad. All I ever was told was how bad I was.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
You were so bad. And a lot of this stuff I didn't remember. And I'm thinking, what did I do? Like the way that, they're like, but you were so bad and you used to curse and you used to talk back and you used to do. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, but I was a child.
Right. I don't think there's such thing as bad kids. I hate when people say
like,
to their child.
Children are not inherently bad.
Right, exactly.
So here we go. What was exactly happening in my life?
Right.
That I was responding to?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What was actually going on in my life that maybe you don't want to be accountable for?
Right.
Because when children are acting up in school, it's usually always a problem at home.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
I ran the streets and was a runaway and didn't come home, but not because I was out in the street on drugs.
Right.
Because I wanted to be with people that I felt loved me.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
You spend your whole life just kind of looking to be loved back.
Right.
And so I remember I ran into a friend of mine that I had went to junior high with, and we were talking, and I was like, wow, like we really we been through some stuff, and I said, again, we were bad, huh? I guess because all I hear is you were so bad, and he said, Rhonda, we were lost.
Wow. That's it. Yeah.
He said we were not bad.
Yeah.
We were lost. And that's what we were. And so, but my point is, you have to watch the way you talk to children.
Absolutely.
You have to watch what you say to them. It can be so damaging because it took me years to realize that I really, for years, didn't have self-love and self-worth.
Right.
And although it's funny too, because there was a time in childhood, because again, like certain things, that are traumatic, you repress. But I can remember a time when I did feel loved and I did feel I had a great, sense of self. We used to, where we danced at, because I'm from South Philly, our dance school, basically, we did our recitals at the Academy of Music. Oh, wow. Okay, so as a little girl strutting around on this big stage, I remember feeling like I was on top of the world. And my grandmother used to cut up like these little 90s and, you play dress up and everything. And I remember always feeling it. Then it was my grandmother, the relationship that I had with my grandmother, who always made me feel so special. But what happens is you got to watch who gets to interact and engage with your children over the years. Because I can remember that time where if that pattern was consistent, I would have definitely had a stronger sense of self growing up and sense of self-worth. I'm so transparent about it, and I feel the need to share it because I feel like if it can help someone at a stage in their life where, they really are capable of making that change and really, really getting to the core of what's going on. I'm grateful for where I'm at, in my life, but as far as being healed, like I told you, I feel like I'm definitely healed from, the neglect, the abandonment, and just all of that. I wouldn't take anything from my journey. I would do it all over again if I had to, because I'm happy with who I am. I know I'm who I am in Christ, and that this journey was for a reason. And my story, basically, I just try to use it to inspire other people because, like I tell my students, you can do this. I was kicked out of school. Okay. I was a high school dropout. Wow. I even went to, the alternative schools. Yeah. My sister said, "Oh, Miss Rhonda, you rode the short bus?" Yes.
She said the short bus. I was on the short bus.
That's what they said. I said, yeah, I did. I was in fights all the time. And again, mother at 15 and homeless and displaced in the streets. Again, like, I know if I can overcome those things that, I'm like, you can do this.
Right. I think you can so do important. This. You said something. You said a lot just now, Rhonda.
I
did. But no, you said a lot of key points, and I'm gonna try to go back a little bit. I want to go back to the fact that when you were talking about your son, because I dealt with this with my daughter. I think sometimes because of our codependency or our need to please or our need to be needed, right? We begin to help other people, and our children see that, and they don't understand that.
And they don't understand
and I remember, I had my daughter, she would always used to say to me, "Why are you helping them? They treat you like this, or they treat you like that."
Yes, I got that all the time.
Yeah, I'm a woman of God. You can't just leave people. I've had people. We ended up calling my house. I felt like my house was like a shelter because everybody ended up living in my house and with their kids. But I felt like I was helping them. But even though they wasn't treating me well, there was still always drama with these people that I was helping. I felt like they needed me. And my daughter, she very smart. She, kids can say, they like, "Wait, why are you putting up with this? This don't make no sense." And she used to always say to me, she was like, I think that's another reason why our relationship was strained the way it was, because she didn't understand the fact that I was helping these people and why I was helping. But in return, I'm thinking about it. I didn't understand that I didn't need to do that.
Yes.
And even to now with my kids who are a little bit the younger ones, they even say, "Mom, why are you helping?" And I keep trying to teach them, you help people who are in need. But I'm also teaching them, and especially with the 18-year-old now, she's telling me about her friendships. And I felt like this is so important because she was saying about the behaviors of her friends and how they was treating her and how she thinks that she needs to do this for her friends. And I thought about it, I was like, I've been there and done that. So because I'm going through the healing process of feeling the need to be needed, I'm able to teach her, say, listen, that relationship is not well for you. Because I said to her, listen, if you, an 18-year-old, think that you have to hold on to this friend because this friend needs you, you're going to think that people need you all the rest of your life, or you're not going to be able to disconnect from those people who are hurting you.
You won't be able to have boundaries.
Yeah, so we had that, and she no longer has that friend. That's the one thing I wanted to say, because definitely our children are watching us, and we think that kids don't know no better because they're kids. But they really do see, like, you're hurting yourself, you're damaging yourself, you're allowing these people to walk over you, and then they become so angry at you because you allow this. Like, they don't like the other person, of course, but then they don't like your behavior. And we as parents sometimes don't see that because they're like, oh, they're kids, they don't know any better. They absolutely do. And I think that sometimes we need to start listening to our kids. Like, that person ain't right for you, they hurting you, I don't like you, see you hurt. And that's the one thing. And then the other thing that you were talking about was really, you said a lot. I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to filter it out. I should have took some notes with the conversation here. But that how it just goes into other relationships, and the fact that I know what I wanted to talk about. The fact that we don't think that we are enough, so then we continue to do things to try to make us feel that we are enough. And that's part of the codependency. That's part of the fact that
we're not sacrificing ourselves for others, we don't feel normal.
Yeah, and that's what I'm still processing through. It's like, you're not the sacrifice. Who told you were supposed to be the sacrifice?
I called a friend of mine a couple weeks ago. He's kind of like because again, the Codependent No More book, again, great, one of the best books I ever read on codependency. Codependent No More. She has another book that came after that, I think, but it's called Beyond Codependency. Mm-hmm. And that's where you learn that you are a recovering addict.
Wow.
You are a codependent. It is an addiction. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you are in recovery, very much so. And you can fall back into those old patterns.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's funny because I was talking to my friend and I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I do realize, while I say I know I'm healed as far as just the self-love that I have for myself now, the acceptance, my ability to treat myself well and live in my purpose, like the peace that I have.
Right.
Again, that all came from just my relationship being stronger now in Christ. And I know that. Because once I was able to feel his love.
Right.
And really know that I'm loved and I have favor on my life and I know that I'm anointed after everything he's brought me through, that gave me the ability to, well, like, look, this is all the love that I need, basically. Like, if nobody else decides to give me love,
that part
as long as I'm good with him, I got to be good with him. If I'm good with him. And that's what kept me doing so much for other people because, you know, my grandmother was very giving and I watched her give, you know. She was the type of person, even if she had food for her children, right? She would still go to Catholic charities and go to places and get food to take to other people, okay, that were too embarrassed to go get it themselves for their families. Like she just was a giver. And so she'd give you her last. And so that's how I grew up. But that keeps you, you know, when it's toxic people that can't appreciate you and don't reciprocate, when really you're not even looking for anything monetary back from them. You just want them to love you back and treat you right. These are the people that you love, you know. But it keeps you, you know, in that cycle.
I had a conversation with a mother, and you know, like all of us, we all kind of parent out of fear or something like that. Particularly those of us who've had children very young, you know, teen moms or whatever. And a lot of times we try to hold on to our kids because we don't want to feel abandoned and rejected because that's what we're used to, right? So then that's how we began to try to just please our kids. So it was a conversation I had with her, and she was saying that her daughter was doing A, B, and C, and I was telling her how she had to take a stand for that. Like, this is not... And she was like, but she's not going to be happy with me. And I was like, your job is not to make your kids happy. Like, and I'm learning that over time. Like, we want to please people so bad that to the point where, like, we damage people.
Yes. Yes, we do.
We damage.
We do. And that's the enabler.
Yeah.
Because I can look back at relationships and say, you know what? I have to take responsibility because that person maybe would have got themselves together sooner.
Yeah, if I
wasn't so busy trying to fix everything.
Yeah, the fact that my daughter don't know how to pick out her clothes and iron her clothes at 18 because I did everything. Yeah, like that's crazy. Yeah. That's damaging. Like she's about to go off to the Marines.
I know what I wanted. I was telling you how I had to reach out to my friend who is like kind of like my unofficial codependent sponsor.
Okay.
And so I was falling back into old patterns, but in a way. But I said to him, I said, I really have to, again, the work is ongoing. And he said, what happened, Rhonda? And I said, I'm out here right now. I was at the mall. I was in Nordstrom. I was just having a good old day. I was just out shopping, perusing the stores. I take myself on dates all the time, you know, and I just was hanging out and having a good time. But here's the thing. I actually felt guilty.
Ooh, talk about that.
I felt guilty because all my money is mine now. Isn't that something?
Wow.
Because I was so used to getting hit up all the time.
I was so used to getting hit up. So I was getting hit up all the time.
Like, I thought, this is crazy. Like, I feel guilty because I'm actually finally in a place in my life where I am the only one that's reaping the benefits of Rhonda's hard work and Rhonda's sacrifice. Okay? And I feel guilty because I feel like there's somebody...
You were at peace. There was no drama.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so...
That's so crazy.
And that's how come I know, like, yeah, I mean, like, I know that I don't want to be... I have no desire to be in a relationship at this stage of my life.
Me either.
I have no desire, and that's the truth. Like, one day, you know... but I know I'm still working on myself. Yeah. You know, but I'm also in a very selfish place now. The pendulum has swung so far in the other direction now.
Oh, okay.
That's where I'm at. Where it's like, I really don't have or want to have to make time for someone else to be in my life right now. Yeah. To have to like, and that's crazy, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing about seasons. that, like,
Yeah.
life is always evolving and it changes. And, you just never know where you're going to be from one season to the next. Like, I remember earlier in my parenting, after I got divorced, so it's been about 15 years, something, whatever.
Right,
And,
whatever.
When I, at this point, listen, whatever. No, but I used to think that I wanted to date somebody because I wanted a father for my children. I felt like I needed, because I was married and my kids grew up in a household of their father and their mother, and I didn't grow up like that, right? Earlier in my years I did, but then everything changed. And that's where I believe my life has shifted into the direction that was more hurtful for me, abandonment and rejection, because my dad ended up moving out of state. So my goal was to, after that divorce, it was to really find somebody that can help parent, because it was me now being a single mom of 2 kids, but then my nieces, who my sister and her husband passed away, because they came from a house of a married family, and then they didn't have any a father in the house. So my goal earlier in parenting was to find somebody to help me raise these kids.
Yeah.
Right? And then, but that's not my goal now. Like, I done raised them all these years by myself now.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not looking for somebody to help raise my kids with me anymore. Like, I was not somebody to come in to be the savior, but really come alongside of me and have the same parenting style that I had, the same relationship with God, spiritual and things like that, to raise these kids, because I thought that that's what they needed. I thought that I was not enough to be a parent to 4 children by myself.
Right.
I thought that I was going to drop the ball. And that was another reason why I micromanaged everything and was in control, because I just didn't want the ball to drop. But now that I'm older and my kids are older, I'm not desiring any of those type of relationships. I'm not looking for you who got little kids. I don't want nobody to come raising my kids. So in life, there's just seasons that changes and we evolve from it. Back in the day, I was probably looking for you to help me raise my kids. Now, you better not bring your little kids. You better not have no little kids. I'm just not in that season, and I don't need you to come in and be a stepdad to my kids.
Yeah.
That's just not what it is now.
Yeah, it's not. But, and again, it's seasons, and it may change later on. Mm-hmm. I'm just so careful now, because I'm even to the point like where.
Oh, I just got something. Go ahead.
Like socioeconomical status and all of that. Like when I dated, like I didn't care about, look, you work, you bring something to the table. Let's do this. We can do this together. But now it's different.
It's different now.
It's very, very different. I'm finishing up my doctoral program. I finally got IRB approval.
Woo, woo. Woo, finishing up the doctorate.
Hey. There's that part. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I am so, like, everybody has an agenda. Yeah. Remember I told you about my post-COVID relationship?
Yeah.
I call it my post-COVID relationship. Because when we were in seclusion, in quarantine, let's face it, we couldn't be around. Here it was a case where this was a disease that you could contract without even having to be intimate with someone. Right. So we were isolated. So a lot of people came out, and got into relationships. And I feel like, I could have been taken advantage of in this relationship, because really what he did was he love bombed me.
I don't even know what that means.
So love bombing. Okay, there was a time, the way I was raised, when a guy brought his resources, that meant he was into you.
Oh, okay.
But let me tell you what they do now, though.
What they do now?
What they do now is, when they know you can bring your own resources, they will bring their resources. They'll bring their resources. She's like, yeah. Uh-huh. They'll bring their resources and then some. And just shower you.
Okay.
But that's to get you to really think that, wow, he really must be into me.
Okay. All right.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And to basically, because there is an ulterior motive. Right? So there's salt in the mind. Right?
Okay, I get it.
Salt in the mind.
Yeah, I got it.
You just have to be so careful out here.
Right.
Because it seems like everybody has an agenda. But one of the things that I'm working on is dealing with that too, because I don't want to shut the right people out of my life.
Right.
But I definitely date more on my level now.
Mm-hmm. As you should.
I mean, it was something that I never, but I'm going to tell you what kept me dating below my level for a long time was I was always very humble and very grounded. People would always take me a lot of times for face value and assume, but I'm always been very down to earth. And the thing is, I remember because all my friends were drug addicts, by the way. That's how you know, like, the power of God. I swear, like, most of my friends back in the day were getting on drugs. And for me to never use and be around it, and these are the people that I deal with. And that's why it's like God is so good and just has been so good in my life and just brought me out of, like, when they say he reached down for you and grabbed you and pulled, gives me goosebumps. But I know, like, in my heart that the whole time he was carrying me because the people that I associated with. But the thing was, I never judged them, you know, because that's just not my spirit. But I did realize when I got to a certain stage in my life that, okay, I'm going in another direction. These people going to have me locked up.
They're going to have you locked up, losing your degrees and everything.
Like, I'm talking like in my early 20s when it was that way, you know. But I felt like I was turning my back on them. Right. And that's the codependency. Yeah. I felt like I was wrong because I walked away from these people that I felt, because loyalty is one of my greatest virtues. You know, loyalty is everything to me. And, you know, I'm very loyal to people and loyal to a fault, have been loyal to a fault.
And that loyalty definitely, you know, I think about when we talk about relationships and just living in general, when you're loyal and faithful, especially being a woman of God, like, I hold that dear to my heart. So that will stop you from leaving a job that you're supposed to leave.
It will.
Like, that will stop you from ending the relationship you're supposed to end, because you are that loyal person, right? Yeah. And I experienced that as well. I mean, I was at a job for 12 years, and basically it's like, again, I felt that the job needed me because I brought so much to the job, which I did bring a lot to the job. Of course. But at the same time, because I was so loyal and faithful, and matter of fact, that's what kept me in my marriage for so long. Yes. Because I was like loyal and faithful. That's what kept me there. And then I had to wake up like, wait a minute, you're not even who you are supposed to be, being like that. So you said something earlier again, because you know you be saying stuff, and I told you I need to start taking notes. But dang, I kind of forgot about it.
I know. I feel like it's so much.
But no, it was
when
something.
Get together, it's so much.
Oh, here it is. We were talking about, like, relationships and being different, you know, having a partner and stuff like that. And I think right now what I'm seeing, a lot of single moms that I talk to, they have this struggle where, like I was earlier thinking, I wanted somebody to help raise my children. So because it's so pushed on you, marriage right now, like marriage is pushed so heavy that these women begin to settle for anybody who is bringing a check. Or seem like they can be a father to your kids in return. Like, they're not even the person you're supposed to be with. And then that's where we get all these abuse from, and all these other things that happen to our children, is because we leave ourselves so open because we think that we need A, B, and C for us to be completed, not realizing that we're already complete. But when it comes back to what you had said earlier, is about really knowing who you are. Like, your identity is so important, because if we don't know who we are and that we belong to God and that we don't have to settle for anything less than what God has for us, we become open to any and everything. You know, they say that if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. My thing is that if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for everything.
God just recently took somebody out of my life that I had picked back up.
Picked up like a pocketbook?
No, that I had picked back up in my life. Yeah. God had took them out of my life in, I think it was like 2017. Yeah. Had took them out of my life. Right? But again, me, loyalty. Oh, this person was there for me through this time, and and just feeling like, you know, hey, maybe I should reach out. And I had reached out, I guess it was sometime last year. The reconnection was established, and I realized, let's just say, that I should have listened to God the first time. Yeah. That God took them out of my life for a reason. And it turned out that they were just, when people are clapping for other people, right? They're in your circle, but they're clapping for other people, but they can't clap for you. Yeah. They're not for you.
Absolutely.
They're not. Because my people, are you kidding me? I clap for people I don't even know.
Right.
I act retarded at graduation when my students is graduating. I just can't, and anybody's, for that matter. It's, again, just, I don't understand that. And I've always, somebody told me a long time ago, you should never be jealous of somebody if you're not willing to do what they had to do.
Right.
Right?
I don't understand the whole jealousy thing with anybody.
That's crazy to me. But the Bible, what's the scripture? I don't know. I don't remember. Is it in Proverbs where it's talking about anger, but then it says, but jealousy, who can stand in that? Mm-hmm. Like there's just no way. Yeah. There's just no way. And it's hard because, especially when it's, it's people that you really wish, could be happy for you. But yeah, someone also told me that they thought I was an overachiever because that was part of my codependent. You're a perpetual student.
Oh, I heard that too. But it's kind of true a little bit.
And in a way it kind of is.
Yeah.
But the reason why I go so hard is because it has more to do with my kids. It has more to do with all the sacrifices that I know I had to make as a young girl. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough to be able to have mentors. That's why we say we need a village, even if it's not our family.
Yeah.
We need a village. We need mentors. We need people to step up to the plate. And if I didn't have those kind of people, I would have been lost. Mm-hmm. But for me, I felt like I had something to prove because I don't ever want my kids to ever think to themselves, well, she made all these sacrifices and yes, she was young and everything, but what did she do with her life? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like,
I used to use honestly, as a, growing up where, my mom didn't graduate high school and my dad did graduate high school, but no, like I'm still about to be 44 in a couple of weeks, y'all. Will still be a first generation college grad. Like
how about
I literally am, a first generation college grad. And, I went to school, became a nurse, went to technical school, but now I'm actually the first one to actually be having a college degree. And I used to go hard in school so much to prove people that I am enough. But yes. I don't even do that anymore. Like, me going to school is for me. I love it. I like to learn.
I stopped doing that a long time ago.
I'm a forever learner. Yeah. I am a forever.
I decided my reason for just pursuing the doctoral degree really is just was more about just I want to be able to, in my retirement years, be able to teach online. And in order for you to really be able to teach online exclusively, you have to have your doctoral degree in order to be able to do that. I'm thinking in terms of
long term. But I used to, and that's how I am. Like I love learning. I'm a forever learner. Like I just love learning.
Yeah.
And it's not. I'm not even just talking about when we talk about advancing my nursing degree, but even leadership. Like I'm always in school. I'm always doing something. And early on in life, though, I did all that to escape me. I did all that to escape.
So you didn't have to deal with your stuff.
Yeah, I did all that. Mm-hmm. But growing in the Lord and really understanding who I am now as a woman of God, like who God has made me, like I don't seek these other things to hide who I am. I go up in the mirror and face myself.
And this is it.
What's going on? But it took over time for that. And I think that's how my parenting has evolved too over time, because I thought I had to be the superhero. I thought I had to do all these things. And even in the process of still just healing from, childhood trauma, so that I could even parent to the best ability, but understanding that there is nobody perfect and that, listen, at the end of the day, I'm doing what I can for you, the best I can for you. And I'm not going to, I told my son, he was upset because, his father's not in the household, and earlier in his life, I was making him go see his father because he was I was controlled. He was a mommy's boy. He was a preemie, so everything was me and him. And he had said, he was so mad at me because I was making him go see his dad. And I said, listen, if you got to be 30 years old in a therapy office
so be it.
Because as your mom, the best thing for you was to have a relationship with your father. And I forged that. I made that happen. And you sitting in a therapy office at 30, I'll eat that. Because what I'm not going to do is say, okay, you don't want to do this. And you're a kid, you don't really know. So I'm doing the best as I can as a mom. And I'm not trying to please you. I'm just doing the best that I can for you and the right thing for you. So you're going to have to get over that. Listen, I might even pay for your therapy sessions at 30.
Absolutely.
At this point right now,
it's going to make you,
what we're going to do is do this.
Yeah.
Okay? But that had to be over time because I had to know who I was though. And I think you made a key point tonight of really understanding not who people say you are,
Yes.
not who people want you to be, but who you are, who God has created you to be, and putting in that work, because working to figure out who you are is a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's so beneficial because you're able to benefit people in another way, which you didn't even think about by just knowing who we are. So I think, really dealing with the codependency, really dealing with the abandonment and rejection, really dealing with those things so that we don't continue to have this transgenerational thing where now our kids are trying to figure out what happened to them.
Yeah. And that they have no boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries are so important. There are our emotional fences,
Man.
and we owe it to ourselves to have those boundaries. And yeah, I mean, it's change, it's a lot of work maintaining and not falling back into those old patterns. So I understand now. Remember I told you how when I went and found the book, it was in the addiction section. I'm like, I'm not an addict.
Right.
But the reason why is because codependency is very much an addiction. Yeah. And so knowing that and accepting it, I know that I know how to identify when I'm, my empathy is really kicking in and it's like, oh, but I could make that better. And I was like that. I would have moments where I'd be like that with certain students too, where I would care more because I'm so passionate and I just, really want them to succeed. But, I had to learn that too. They have to want it, they have to want it and they have to put in the work. So yeah, it's definitely, but again, knowing that those are your issues, that's important so that way you can go ahead and map out a plan to try to make that change.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think, sometimes in parenting, we just think that, or sometimes I don't even think we think sometimes, because sometimes I wasn't thinking in parenting, but I think that we think avoidance is the best way to handle things and not really deal with our own issues. And then we wonder why we have these type of outcomes.
That's another, that happens a lot with codependency. What happens is like you will really just pour yourself into other people and their problems and trying to fix their life and help them. Because it's a distraction. Yeah. It keeps you from basically doing the real work. And like we talked about before, let's stop perseverating about what makes these dysfunctional people tick. Who cares what their diagnosis is at the end of the day? If they're a bad person, and they, you don't feel good, you don't feel valued or loved. I had family members that used to love to exploit me in front of other people, that love to talk about we're over.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. See what happens? But again, they would, you got to be able to disengage and recognize when people still want that to be your story.
Right. Yeah.
When it's no longer, don't let them define.
Yeah. I feel like that people don't realize that we can write our own narrative. Like, I feel like people don't realize, like, listen, you are truly, really in control of your life. Like, God has given us the power, right, over everything. So we really are control our life. Even things that happen and arise, but our responses is the best way to how we deal with things. So in essence, we really do control. Like, we may not be able to, all right, you get hit by a car, but how I'm going to respond to this is what I control. So for people who really want control, you really kind of can control your life, right? You really can write your own narrative. Thank you guys for joining Panther with a Purpose. Again, we want to bring back the responsibility, nobility, and beauty back into parenting. As we talked about tonight, there's so many different aspects in parenting we can go into. But for the most part, I feel like tonight we were really stressing the fact that you have to heal. You have to, some of these things that we have on ourselves will really spill over on our children or anybody that's in contact with us if we don't heal. And healing for ourselves, though. Like, I'm not just healing so I can heal that I could just be a better mom for my child. I want to heal so I can be a better person for me. I want to show up for yourself is the best thing that we could ever do. So, because if you can't show up for yourself, you can't really show up for no one else. So I think tonight we hit so many different things as far as, codependency, narcissistic behavior, addiction, all these things that people don't really talk about. Because, here at Panther with Purpose, we talk about what you don't want to talk about and really get down to the root of the issue. Because unless we get to the root, there will be no good fruit, right? So I thank you guys for joining me. I thank you, Rhonda, for coming back again. It's always an engaging conversation. We always talk about stuff that, people don't really want to talk about, because I feel like we sugarcoat so much and pacify so many things. But honestly, at the end of the day, it begins with us and it has to end with us.
And again, thank you for the platform, Doll, for just giving us
no
the
problem. Thank you for all these balloons. I'm overwhelmed with all these balloons. But it really was a great conversation. I really enjoy it again, Rhonda, and I know you'll be back again sometime soon.
I want to come back and talk about my business.
Yeah, we got to have.
We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, and we got a lot.
Yes.
We got a lot on the plate that we need to. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, definitely come back. Again, at Parents of Purpose, parents are the bows and our children are arrows. They will go wherever we aim them. They will land. Eventually, it may not be today, may not be tomorrow. Listen, maybe a couple years. Listen, we didn't land right away either, right? And half of us still not even there yet. I know I'm not there where God has for me to go yet. It's still a process. But as long as we put the tools, as long as we put in the work, and then we, send our kids clothes, not send them out naked for the world to dress them, to do whatever they want to do with them and have their way with them. As long as we do that for our kids, we will be able to, our children will be able to land eventually. So thank you again for joining Parents with a Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janel, and look back forward to seeing you next week at 7 p.m.
Bye.